then you can tell me which of these questions you want me to answer in today's class, right? Okay, so here's the first question. So what's the first question saying? Explain the meaning of and whether there is a link between externalities and public goods, between transfer payments and poverty trap, right? B part says consider whether the existence of externalities in production means that it is impossible to achieve an optimal allocation of resources, 13 marks. Next question says, explain what is meant by the principal agent problem and analyze whether it is likely to be found in some market structures and why it is likely to be found in some market structures and not others, right? Okay, then the next question says, explain what is meant by contestable market and discuss whether a firm in a contestable market necessarily aims to maximize its profits, right? Okay, question 4 is saying a rise in wages and salaries will increase the cost of production, decrease profits, cause inflation, and is detrimental. Discuss whether economic theory of wage determination support the view that an increase in the level of wage rates is detrimental for the firm and for the worker, right? Distinguish between internal value of money and external value of money and consider whether there is a link between these two values, right? Policies which attempt to control internal rate of money will automatically make it difficult to control the external value of money. Discuss the view that this statement is only partially correct. Okay, the failure of policy of quantitative easing to solve problems associated with an economic recession illustrates the weakness of monetary transmissions mechanism in particular and monetary policy in general. Critically evaluate this statement. Assess the impact of foreign direct investment on developing economies. It is often stated that the problem of vicious circle of poverty exists in developing countries. Explain what this means and discuss how this problem might be solved. So these are all the questions, essay questions. Now you tell me which of these questions you want me to attempt. Yeah. Isha, can you hear me? Okay. Now which of these questions, let's say if this would have been your exam, which of these questions you would have attempted? And then we can get started and do any 2 questions. Yeah. Come on, shouldn't be that difficult. Which questions you want me to attempt? Question 6 is from which chapter? Okay, this is from unit 4, when we talked about quantitative easing. So this is open market operations. This is about open market operations when central bank issues government bonds, and when government bonds are issued, then the entire process that we talked about, open market operations. So it relates to that topic. Unit 4, macroeconomics. Right. Question 3 and question 4, right? So let's see which are question 3 and question 4. Okay, makes sense. Fine. Fair enough. We can do that. Okay. So let's do 3 and 4 first. And then if there are any other questions, you can also do those, right? So let's start off with 3 first. Explain what is meant by principal agent problem and analyze why is it likely to be found in some market structures and not others. 12 marks, right? Okay. B part of the question says, we'll come to the B part later. Okay. So explain what is meant by principal agent problem and analyze why it is likely to be found in some market structures and not others. Okay, now have a look at this, students. So what is principal agent problem? So let me tell you, right? So principal agent problem refer to a situation where the original owners of a company or a business are not managing the company, right? So what is principal? Principal is the person who has invested. Who is principal? So principal is the term used to refer to shareholders. Refers to business owners or shareholders, right? Who actually owns the business. Refer to business owners or shareholders, right? Are you getting me? Refers to business owners or shareholders. And the term agent refers to managers, right? Who are actually on the forefront of the business, and they are the ones who are managing the business, right? So agent on the other hand refer to managers. Now, what exactly does this mean in principal agent problem, right? So principal agent problem refers to the situation where the original owner of the business, like shareholders, are not the ones who are managing the company. So do you guys know what public limited companies, the structure of public limited companies and how they operate? So very big companies, public limited companies, are managed by managers, right? So the shareholders are obviously part of, some of the shareholders are part of board of directors, but they're not directly involved in day-to-day operations of the company, right? Because they are huge companies, right? So the way it happens, if you guys take uh, business studies, you would know that public limited companies have, these companies are listed on stock exchange and there are hundreds and thousands of shareholders. So technically all these people are the company owners, right? But the way it is managed is that, they elect board of directors from the shareholders, right? So there is annual general meeting during which shareholders vote, they select board of directors, and then board of directors further appoint CEO of the company and managers of the company. And then these are the people, the CEO and the managers, these are the people who run the company, right? They are the ones who look after day-to-day operations, right? So let me give you a simple example. So Facebook, think about this. So Facebook, Amazon, Google, right? So I'm taking examples of these companies because obviously they're very well known, and these are big companies that we have always that everyone knows about, right? Even in Pakistan, if I have to give you some examples, so those would be PTCL. PTCL is a public limited company. Then you have 4G Cement. Then you have all these other companies, right? Now, what happens is that there are hundreds and thousands of shareholders. So anyone who owns shares of that company is technically a shareholder, right? Annual general meeting takes place during which shareholders vote for board of directors, right? Now, board of directors are selected from shareholders. Generally, people who have more shares are part of board of directors, right? Now, once board of directors are elected, they are the ones who appoint the CEO and the managers, right? Are you getting me? And then these people, CEO and the managers, are the ones who are directly managing the company. They are looking after the day-to-day operations of the business, right? They're looking after sales, they're looking after marketing, they're looking after finance, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, what does the issue of principal agent refer to? What is this problem? Principal agent problem, right? So principal agent problem says that managers and CEO have different objectives from the shareholders. From the shareholders of the company, shareholders are strictly about profit maximization, whereas CEO and managers might be interested in something else. What else might they be interested in? They are generally interested in things like, more salaries, more perks, more benefits, more vacations, right? Are you getting me or not, right? Yes or no, right? So principal agent problem says that agents are not always working in the best interest of the principals. Students, are you getting me or not? If there's anything confusing, you have to ask me in the middle. Okay, fine. Fine, no problem. Okay. Okay. Isha, are you getting me? Principal agent problem refers to a situation where excuse me, when large companies are managed by managers called agents, and they are not working in the best interest of the shareholders. And they're not working in the best interest of, and they are not working in the best interest of shareholders. Are you getting me or not? Right? So what is the interest of shareholders? Obviously, being the owner of the company, they want higher returns. They want more dividends, they want more capital gains, right? But managers are interested in something else. Managers are interested in their salaries, managers are interested in their vacations, managers are interested in their own perks, fringe benefits, as we say, right? Of also called principal, right? Okay, is everyone clear on this? Now, when this problem arises, right? And right, okay, perfect. So when this problem rises, obviously we get to see that the shareholders are not getting the highest return from their investment, right? So why do people buy shares in any company? They want to, they have invested in the company and they want better returns, they want more profits. But when that is not happening because the managers are not working in the best interest, they are not trying to maximize profit for the company, in fact they are interested in their own benefits and their own salaries, then this situation, this problem is known as principal agent problem, right? Are we simple on this? Are we clear on this? Okay, now what type of companies are more likely to face principal agent problem? Now think about this. We have talked about, as part of our syllabus, we have talked about 4 types of market structures. What type of 4? How many types of market structures we have talked about? We have talked about 4 types of market structures: perfect competition, monopolistic competition, right? Monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly, right? Now think about this. Out of these 4 market structures, in whichever market structure there are large companies, out of these 4 market structures, right, in which market structures you can imagine that the size of the companies would be big, huge, right? So those companies would either be private limited companies, not even in fact private, public limited companies. So principal agent problem is more likely to happen in principal agent problem is more likely to happen in public limited companies, right? Exactly. So in monopoly, obviously we know it's one large firm, so we can totally expect it to be a large company, and most probably it will be public limited company. Same goes for oligopoly. Yes or no? Is this making sense? Right? So since these are large companies, we can expect them to have public limited company status. Are you getting me? Because otherwise, if you think of sole trader, what happens in sole trader? The owner is the one who is managing the business, right? Because that is owned by one person. Most of the times in perfect competition, the size of the company is so small businesses. You can't, it would not even be a company. It would be a small business owned by one person or maximum partnership, right? So either in perfect competition, you will have sole traders or you will have, as we say, partnership, right? So we can't expect the problem of principal agent to exist in this case, sole trader or partnership. Is this making sense? Right? Same goes for monopolistic competition. Sometimes the companies in monopolistic competition can be large, but you know, sometimes these are small. So I would write this down as mixture of small and large companies. Is this making sense? Isha? Okay, now this is what you need to write. Obviously, you will not write a table, make a table like this, but you will explain in your own words in paragraph form, large businesses. Okay, now we said, since the question was saying that in which market structures is it likely that they face the problem of principal agent problem, right? So we have written the 4 types of market structures, which include perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly, right? And then by knowing what, like, each of these market structures, we can tell with surety that monopoly is one large business, so therefore obviously it will be a large company. Same goes for oligopoly. There are few large firms, so even in oligopoly the size of companies will be large. On the other extreme, in perfect competition, right, there will be many small companies, very small sized companies. So either those companies will be running as sole trader or partnership, right? And when you are running a business as sole trader or partnership, there's no chance of principal agent problem, right? And the last of all is monopolistic competition. So monopolistic competition, it depends, right? We can't say anything for sure, but most probably it will be a mixture of small and large companies, right? Okay, now after you've explained this, then you will say that principal agent problem is more likely, principal agent problem likely to take place in larger companies where shareholders are not directly managing the company. In larger companies slash businesses where shareholders are not managing the business, right? Is this making sense? Okay. Now, this being said, you can also comment in this question, right? Now, let's go back and look at the question, exactly what the wording was, right? Now, the question for 12 marks was saying, explain what is meant by principal agent problem and analyze why is it likely to be found in some market structures and not others, right? Okay. Now, think about this. After you've explained the problem, principal agent problem, and you've explained that it's more associated with large public limited companies, and out of these four market structures, these two market structures are more likely to face this problem because over here you have large, large size companies, right? After this, you will say that what is some possible solutions to this problem, right? Can you think of any possible solutions? So how can shareholders or how can the company owners try to mitigate or try to reduce this principal agent problem? What can be done in this regard? What do you think? So think about this. If managers financial incentives are linked with companies is linked with companies' financial performance, then it's quite of a high chance that managers will try to maximize profit. If managers' financial compensation is linked to companies, we can say if managers' financial incentives are aligned Are you getting me? Then managers are more likely to aim for profit maximization, right? Okay, what else? What else? Great, perfect. Okay, so is this making sense? Okay, so what we have talked about so far, right? So we're talking about principal agent problem. We have talked about, what that is. Then we explained that what type of market structures are more likely to have this problem and why, right? Then we said that if you have to reduce this problem of principal agent problems, what needs to be done that manages financial incentives. Are you getting me? By the way, to give you a specific example, a lot of top management of a company nowadays also has shares in the company. Do you know this? Right? So think about this. The CEO of Google or the CEO of Amazon or whoever, right? So those people, even though they are not, the actual owners and the shareholders, right? But they are provided shares by the company. Why? So that they have a direct interest. They have a financial stake in the company. Now, when they have a financial stake in the company, so you can totally imagine that these managers will also aim for profit maximization. Are you getting me? So top management are provided shares, are given company shares so that they have a financial stake in the company. Are you getting me? What I'm trying to say? So technically with this, they become the shareholders of the company. So that So exactly what I was saying you before, are given company shares so that their incentives are directly aligned with profit maximization. In this way, you can make sure that managers are trying to maximize the profit of the company. Objective of profit maximization. Is it making sense? So this is the entire idea, right? Okay, what else can be done to eliminate the problem of principal agent problem? One more thing that a business can do to eliminate this problem, and that is to create more compliance, more accountability, more accountability for managers. So to ensure that whatever they are doing is in the best interest of the company. More accountability for managers and top management. So to make sure that whatever they're doing, that is in the best interest of the company. For managers and top management, to ensure that they are working in the best interest of the company. Is this simple? Any confusion so far? Okay, are we good on this? So this is all what you need to talk about it. And we have talked about what principal agent problem is, why is that a problem, and what can be done to remove that problem, right? Are we good on this? Okay, great. Perfect. Now let's move on and discuss the B part. Any confusion? If there's any confusion, please ask me, right? Okay, now the B part of this question says, now let's read this together. Explain what is meant by contestable market and discuss whether a firm in a contestable market necessarily aims to maximize its profit. Necessarily aims to maximize its profit. Okay, now what is contestable market? Think about this. So contestable market is one where there are no entry and exit barriers. What is contestable? What is contestable market? So contestable market is one where there are no entry and exit barriers, which means that it's super easy to enter the market and super easy to leave the market. There are no entry and exit barriers, right? Markets where there are no entry and exit barriers. No entry and exit barriers. So we did talk about entry and exit barriers in details when we were doing, market structures. We said entry barrier is anything that makes it difficult for a new firm to enter. Similarly, exit barrier is anything that makes it difficult for a firm to leave the market, right? So when there are no entry and exit barriers, that is known as contestable market. Okay, now moving forward, we'll talk about what is contestable market, right? And discuss whether, what is the question? Explain what is contestable market, explain what is meant by contestable market, discuss whether a firm in contestable market necessarily aims to make profit. Okay, now if it's a contestable market, what would you expect? Would you expect a large number of firms in contestable market or less number of firms? If we have already said that in contestable market, there are no entry and exit barriers, would you expect a large number of firms or less number of firms? You'll expect large number of firms. Excellent, right? Because it's so easy to enter the market and also so easy to leave the market that you'll expect more number of firms, right? Now, with that happening, when there are more number of firms, what happens to profit? What happens to profit? Right? So do you remember? Let me show you the graph for that. Right? So if you remember, we made the graph for perfect competition. So there's a short run in perfect competition and then there's a long run. in short run, firms in perfect competition are making abnormal profit. So they're making abnormal profit. Exactly. Excellent, right? So if you remember, we made the short run and the long run, right? Let me tell you. So this is on the left side, we'll draw the short run. So you have price and cost on the y-axis. You can also use this graph in a question like this if you are comfortable making one, right? So you have price and cost on the y-axis, you have quantity of output on the x-axis, or you can simply say output on x-axis. And similarly, you'll make another graph on the right-hand side, and you will show price and cost on the y-axis, and you will have, so you'll have price slash cost on the y-axis, and you'll have output on the x-axis, right? Okay, now have a look at this, students. So this will be your long run. Okay, now what happens in short run? Let's first look at the short run, right? So what happens in short run is that this is your demand curve in perfect competition. It's perfectly elastic demand curve. It's perfectly elastic since there are so many firms and there's so much of competition. Right? So this is perfectly elastic demand curve. So this will be your straight demand curve. This is also your marginal revenue, and this also shows you the price, right? Then you have the same shaped marginal cost graph like any other market, right? J-shaped graph, marginal cost, right? And then you have your ATC. Then you have your ATC like this, right? Are you getting me? So this is the shape of your ATC. Okay, now think about this. What is the profit maximization quantity? For any firm, the profit maximization quantity is where the marginal cost is equals to marginal revenue. So the two are intersecting at this point. So the two are intersecting at this point. You'll bring the dotted line down and you label it as QP. So QP means profit maximization quantity. Then you'll see where is this intersecting with the ATC. So you'll connect it to the y-axis. You'll connect it to the y-axis, and this will tell you how much it costs you to produce a typical unit of the good. So you can see for yourself that price is higher than ATC. Price is higher than ATC. So this entire shaded region would be your abnormal profit. This, the area of this rectangle is your what? Abnormal profit. Is this making sense? However, in the long run, this is not how it looks like. In the long run, your demand drops a little lower. So think about this. Your demand curve goes a little lower. Why? Because the more firms have entered the market. So I will write this down as P1. This is also showing you the marginal revenue, right? Then you have to make the same graphs again. So this will be your marginal cost like this, right? And then you have to draw your ATC, which goes like this. Just give me a second, right? It goes, just a second. It will be tangent to your demand curve. So your ATC in the long run is tangent to your, like this. It is tangent to your ATC, right? Now, what is the profit maximization point? Again, where marginal cost is equals to marginal revenue, right? The two are intersecting at this point, am I right? So you bring this dotted line down and you label it as QP. You label it as QP. And at this point, you can see that this is not only your price, this is also your ATC. So the cost that it takes you to produce that good, that is exactly the same amount at which you are selling the good, right? So if it costs you to produce a good for $30 and you're also selling it for $30, then what happens? You are not making any profit. Are you making any profit? Are you making any profit? The answer to that is no, right? Is making sense? Okay. Now, after you explain this, you will say that out of the four market structures that we have talked about exactly, out of the four market structures that we have talked about, it's only the perfect competition that is contestable market. It is only the perfect competition that is contestable market. Is it making sense? Because in all the other markets, even in monopolistic competition, oligopoly and monopoly, there are some kind of market, there are some kind of entry barriers, but it's only the perfect competition where there are no entry barriers. Is this making sense? Okay, now this being said, what happens? Now you have to comment on the idea that whether firms in contestable market, the question was saying whether firms in contestable market aim for profit maximization. So I will ask you this question in a slightly different way. I will say that whether firms in perfect competition try to maximize profit or not. Do firms in perfect competition, and based on your answer, I will, take it forward from here. Do firms in perfect competition aim for profit maximization? So either you say perfect competition or you say contestable market, it's the same thing. Why? Because we know in perfect competition, there are no entry and exit barriers. So therefore, perfect competition is the same as contestable market, profit maximization. So this is the question. Do firms in perfect competition aim for profit maximization? Yeah. So what's your answer to that? Do firms in perfect competition aim for profit maximization? And the answer to that is yes. And the answer is yes, they do. They do, however, since the level of competition is very high because of no entry and exit barriers, competition is very high due to no entry and exit barriers. Entry and exit barriers, right? Entry and exit barriers, firms will earn normal profit in the long run, as shown in the graph below. As shown in the graph above, right? So let me complete this sentence and then I'll show you the question again, right? So what was the question asking about? Let's read this question one more time. And I will always recommend you that on an actual exam, read the question carefully. And even when you have started attempting the question, read it again, because you might forget or you might have misread it, and therefore you might be answering something very different. So just make sure that you're answering it correctly. Okay, have a look at this. What is the question saying? Explain what is meant by contestable market and discuss whether a firm in contestable market necessarily aims to maximize profit, right? Now we started off by defining what is contestable market. We said contestable market is one where there are no entry and exit barriers, right? Then we made graphs, and not only the graphs, you will not only make the graphs, but you will also explain in your own words that in short run, there are fewer number of firms in the market, right? And therefore, each firm is satisfying a bigger market share. And when this happens, each firm is making abnormal profit. When do you earn abnormal profit? When price is greater than ATC. And as you can see from the graph, that price is greater than ATC, therefore, the area of this shaded region, this rectangle, shows you the abnormal profit that the companies are making. However, what happens in the long run? When other companies see that you're making abnormal profit and there are no entry and exit barriers, new firms will enter. When new firms will enter, your demand curve, think about this, your demand curve will shift down. So let's say previously your demand curve was over here, right? So it was somewhere over here, right? Now it has fallen down because now more firms, but the market size is the same. So each firm is now satisfying a smaller chunk of the market demand. With that happening, now your ATC is just tangent to your demand curve, which means your price is equals to your ATC and your abnormal profit has come down to normal profit, right? After you have explained this, then you will say that yes, firms do aim for profit maximization. However, since the level of competition is very high, firms only earn normal profit, as shown in the graph above. Second thing that you will say is that sometimes also to effectively compete with the competition, also to effectively compete with the competition, firms might not always aim for profit maximization. Are you getting me? Now, why might firms not always aim for profit maximization? Because the competition is very intense. And I'll give you some example. Let me tell you how. Also, to effectively compete with the competition, firms in contestable markets, because obviously we're talking about contestable markets, might not always aim for profit maximization. Which means that they might be using other objectives like sales revenue maximization, like sales revenue maximization, what else? Cost minimization, and increase in market share, right? So is this making sense? So what it says here is that since the competition is very high in contestable market, because there are no entry and exit barriers, right? Firms will only earn normal profit in the long run, because when more firms enter, we know that the market share of each firm drops, and therefore, the profit of each firm decreases. And secondly, right? It's not always that the firm will aim for profit maximization. Why? Because they have to also be mindful of what their competitors are doing. So if there's so much of intense competition and they're afraid that if they strictly start maximizing their profit, they will lose customers, right? Because customers might start switching to cheaper options and blah, 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 and blah, 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 right? So then what they will do is that they might be resorting to other objectives like sales revenue maximization, trying to sell more, trying to have more market share, and trying to cut their cost. So this is what you're supposed to write. Any confusion so far? Any confusion? Isha, is this clear? Okay, now what was question 4? A rise in wages. So let me give you an overview of what you are supposed to write in this question. A rise in wages and salaries will increase the cost of production. Do you agree with that? The answer to that is yes, right? And decrease profits, cause inflation, and is detrimental. Discuss whether economic theory of wage determination support the view that increase in level of wages is detrimental for the firm and workers, right? So in this question, I'll give you some outline. You have to talk about yes and no, right? It's 25 marks. And whenever the question says discuss, you have to talk about both sides of the argument. So first of all, you will comment on yes, higher wages and higher salaries do result in higher cost of production, and it might reduce the profit of the company and cause inflation to some extent, right? So we know decrease in profit is bad, because when profits are decreasing, then firms will not invest more, they will not expand, which means that there will be more unemployment in the country. Same goes when there's higher inflation. Again, that's not cost push inflation. We know when the cost of production is increasing, that causes producers to increase prices, and that results in inflation. So that's also something harmful. But it can also have some positive effects on the economy, right? Higher cost of production, higher wages would mean that workers will have more affordability, right? They will have high purchasing power. They can afford more goods and services. They will have high living standards. They can afford better education and healthcare. Secondly, if wages and salaries are increasing, even if they are increasing, what if the workers are also becoming more efficient and more productive, right? So then it's not a problem, right? Because productivity is also increasing. So that's not a problem because they're also producing more output, which means that more revenue for the company and more profit, right? So these are all the arguments that you have to, discuss one by one, and then overall give you a conclusion whether it's always bad that the cost of production, when the wages increase, it will always be bad, or there can be some other sides to it as well.